check out your hand right now. No matter its shade, whether pale, enough to resemble printer paper, or dark enough to soak up rays, it stems from the longest, weirdest, and most extreme biological makeover on Earth. The craziest part? It wasn't random. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't some lucky cosmic dice roll. It was a slow-motion survival story. A biological deal between your ancestors and the sun. And for the record, the sun definitely wasn't playing fair. So what actually went down? It involves vitamin D, cancer, folate, Africa, ice ages, and ancient farmers accidentally rewriting their DNA. Trace the human family tree back far enough, and every single ancestor you have, regardless of your current roots, rocked dark skin. Every single one. Not just most. Not a majority. All of them. Literally everyone. Roughly sentient years ago, when Homo sapiens debuted in Africa, the whole species was darkly pigmented. Light skin wasn't even a human concept yet, at all. Let that sink in for a second. Early on, every figure in those history books, every ancient empire, every myth and cave doodle, meaning at some point, a massive shift occurred. Something shifted, and it was so profound, so hardwired. So, what caused it? Before we unpack that, we need a quick lesson on skin itself, because most folks have zero clue what skin actually is, or what it's hustling to do for you right now. Many treat skin like mere meat packaging, the flesh bag you shipped in, holding your guts intact while you stroll around, debating trolls on Twitter. But skin is your largest living organ, seriously, and it's juggling about 47 tasks at once. Tasks you never notice and never show gratitude for. The biggest one, arguably, the MVP role, blocking harmful UV rays. UV radiation is invisible energy. The sun blasts at us without mercy. And spoiler alert, it hates you. UV light shatters chemical bonds, wrecks your DNA, and triggers cellular mutations. If those tiny errors stack up badly enough, give it time and boom, cancer, melanoma to be exact. Here is where your shade saves the day. The coloring pigment is called melanin. Biologically speaking, melanin is literally built-in. Archaeology, natural sunscreen. More melanin means a darker appearance and vastly better UV blocking power, stopping rays from piercing deep tissue layers. Where your DNA hides, dark skin is armor, not just an aesthetic. That's why, in Africa, our evolutionary birthplace, basking under the planet's most brutal UV rays, evolution aggressively fast-tracked dark skin. More melanin equaled top-tier DNA security. It kept cancer-causing mutations at bay. It meant longer lives, better health, and crucially, natural selection is a sluggish, merciless optimization code. It endlessly loops one core query billions of times. Does this trait keep you alive long enough to breed? Under the scorching equatorial African sun, dark skin scored a resounding yes every single generation. But here's the twist, where the plot gets wildly and unexpectedly complex. UV rays don't just assault skin cells. They target something else, a vital compound that it's called folate, a crucial form of vitamin B9, cruising through your veins, handling critical biological upkeep. You might think, all right, vitamin B, my doc said, eat more of that. Why does this impact skin tone? It's massive, especially if you're pregnant or trying to conceive. Folate is the architect for embryonic neural tubes. In babies, that tube eventually morphs into the brain and spinal cord. Without enough folate, early in pregnancy, often before a woman even knows she's expecting, the fallout is tragic. Neural tube defects, severe growth issues, or miscarriage. The brutal flaw: UV radiation vaporizes folate. When UV pierces skin and hits the blood, it dismantles folate molecules. In a sun-baked world, like ancient Africa, zero clothes, zero shelter, zero SPF. This birthed a ruthless, new evolutionary filter. Lighter-skinned, pregnant women absorbed more UV damage. Higher folate destruction equaled more neural tube defects. More birth defects meant fewer surviving babies. So now we've got two totally independent drivers making dark skin biologically non-negotiable. 1. Melanin-shielded DNA from UV rot, slashing cancer risk. R. Melanin-guarded maternal folate. Two deadly threats. 1. Elegant biological hack. Dark skin in Africa wasn't just handy, it was flat-out mandatory to keep the species breathing. So dark skin is this ultimate biological Swiss Army knife. It blocks tumors, saves folate, and boasts a 1,000,000-year beta testing phase. If evolution used Yelp, dark skin gets 5 stars and rave reviews. So why on earth did it ever fade? Why did exiting Africa gradually bleach populations over millennia? It boils down to a brutal, elegant biological trade-off. Around 70,000 to 100K years ago, it wasn't one blockbuster event. No town halls were held. No great migration press releases. Just a creeping generational shift. Kids ventured slightly past their parents' borders. Their kids went a bit further. Over millennia, humanity spilled into the Middle East and Europe, heading north. The game changed fundamentally. The sun lost its punch. Not the actual star, mind you. The sun stayed just as nuclear and indifferent. But up north, sunlight strikes at a slant. It chews through more atmosphere first. UV radiation gets heavily filtered. Shorter days, grim winters, clouds squatting for months. In Europe, Asia, or Canada, the UV scene is wildly, comically unlike the equator. Instead of dodging killer rays, you're begging for scraps of weak light to absorb. Up north, low UV meant cancer risks plummeted. Folate was safe too, since weaker UV didn't destroy it. So, all good, right? Wrong. A new villain emerged. The unsung hero of this saga, vitamin D. Your skin brews vitamin D when UVB hits, a chemical called chi-dehydrocholesterol. And vitamin D isn't a luxury. It's mandatory. It is the bedrock of human health. It bosses around calcium and phosphorus in your gut. Without it, calcium just passes through, no matter your milk habit. No calcium means your bones stay squishy. In kids, severe deficiency spells rickets, literally melting bones. In grown women, lack of D triggers osteomalacia, turning pelvic bones to mush. A warped, soft pelvis turns childbirth into a death trap. Or totally impossible. Depleted moms struggled to deliver, but the damage doesn't end at the skeleton. It wrecks your immune system, leaving the door open for bugs. It saps muscle power, messes with your heart. Chronically low D even ties into depression and brain fog. Vitamin D wears so many biological hats that running on empty makes your whole system crash all at once. Up north, dark skin wasn't just a slight handicap. Pre-industrial life lacked vitamin gummies, no fortified milk. So evolution, that icy, patient calculator, started voting it off the island. Mutations lowering melanin output popped up randomly, as nature's glitches do. Generation after generation, over millennia, the Northern Crew's average skin tone faded. Nobody held a committee to decide this. It wasn't a cultural trend, But in that gloomy landscape, the survival algorithm flipped its logic. For ages, scientists figured Europeans got pale via a slow evolutionary crawl up north. Fresh, ancient DNA totally wrecked that theory. Early Euro hunter-gatherers, the folks roaming Europe for tens of thousands of years. Post-Africa exit still rocked seriously dark skin. A dude living in ancient Britain. Roughly 6K years back, 2018, DNA results revealed a combo that trips out modern brains. We're hardwired to link blue eyes with ghostly pale skin. But 10K years ago, nope. The ghostly pale skin we tie to modern Northwest Europeans is shockingly fresh. In the 300K year human timeline, that's merely the last 3%. So what went down 6 to 8K years ago to turbocharge this fading process? Farming. It's a massive human turning point, yet nobody mentions its skin color impact. The Neolithic Revolution. Trading spears for plows. When we started farming, our diets changed forever. Foragers ate a wildly diverse menu naturally packed with vitamin D, fatty fish like salmon, organs like liver and kidney. Farmers just ate grains, wheat, barley, oats, rye, all carbs. Their dietary D intake didn't dip, it flatlined. Suddenly grew, surviving on weak, sun-made vitamin D because dinner used to help out, now relied solely on sunlight. And if they stayed dark, it wasn't enough. The evolutionary push for pale skin went into overdrive. Even slight boosts in D production, even a smidge less melanin, became a literal lifesaver. But wait, there's another factor. Speeding this up. Farm towns were crowded. They were dense and settled. And dense populations massively impact how fast a winning mutation infects the gene pool. In a tiny forager band of 50, a helpful genetic tweak takes ages to hop over to the next camp. In a farming hub of hundreds linked to other farming hubs, a clutch mutation sweeps through thousands. In just a few generations, the combo, no dietary D plus cramped living, basically hit fast forward on European skin bleaching. In just a few millennia, the quiet pressure that nudged skin lighter for ages suddenly went beast mode. Here's a mind bender for most. Skin color isn't a one-gene gig. There is no dark switch and light switch fighting for dominance. It's way messier than that. Skin tone is polygenic. Dozens of genes hold the steering wheel, acting together, genes dictating melanin volume and melanin type. And get this wild twist. Different groups that evolved pale skin separately used totally different genes. East Asians and Europeans, both drastically lighter than equatorial Africans, used different genetic cheat codes. They hit the same endpoint using alternate molecular highways. We call this convergent evolution. The exact same hack, pale skin in low sun zones, discovered solo via totally different DNA recipes by unlinked groups on unlinked continents. Think about the weight of that. The survival demand was so heavy, so loud and clear, that nature solved it the same way. Multiple times, not once, not twice, repeatedly, from scratch. When evolution reinvents the wheel, that's biology screaming a memo. Speaking of wild genetics, let's hit a fun side quest. Blue eyes. Every single blue-eyed person alive, every last one, no debate, shares one mutual ancestor. One dude, one glitch, one moment near the Black Sea, roughly 6K to 10,000 years ago. Before that guy took a breath, the entire planet had brown eyes. Everyone, just brown, forever backward in time. Then this glitch hit, a tweak slashing melanin just in the iris. And it caught on, slow, creeping, then sprinting, likely riding the coattails of pale skin genes that were highly favored. Consider how crazy that is. Something ancient, like blue eyes, often used to categorize folks. Historically, is newer than farming, newer than Stonehenge, newer than taming wild horses. We view some traits as deeply mystical, when, historically speaking, they're fresh off the evolutionary press. Skin color. The very trait driving empires, politics, and historical drama is just nature's. Guess at your needed SPF. In the grand biological scheme, pale. Is the sequel, the software patch, the remix. Dark skin was version 1.0. And the ultimate irony. The sun never took sides. It had no VIP lists. It just baked us blindly, letting evolution do the math. We crafted centuries of hierarchy, hate, and oppression over a vitamin quirk, a calcium absorption glitch, a maternal folate shield. Humans are still physically adapting today. Glacially slow to us, but adapting nonetheless. Those ancient selective pressures still haunt the environment, even if modern tech hits the mute button. We gorge on vitamin D pills. We slather on SPF, eat fortified cereal. We flick on lights, crank the heat, control our UV hits. We engineered a world that unplugs skin biology from its day job. Evolution's code is compiling, but we spoofed the inputs. What this spells for humanity. eBay K years from now, no clue. Darwin doesn't tweet updates. But here is one hard fact we know for sure. Every human shade walking today comes from that exact same crew, baking in the African sun, slowly conquering a chaotic globe, carrying a biological passport stamped in melanin of every land. Their grandpas survived. Every single skin tone answers a challenge from a star, and honestly, every answer nailed it. We built a modern world decoupling skin from its original gig. Evolution's app is still open, but we've hacked the data. What happens to us over the next 100K years? Who knows? Nature keeps her secrets. But here's a rock-solid truth. Every human shade you see traces back to one ancient tribe, standing tall in the African heat, slowly marching across a wild planet, and wearing, etched in melanin, the flawless record of everywhere their bloodline roamed. Each skin tone is a brilliant answer to a cosmic test, and every single one passed. We forged a society detaching our skin's biology from its core task. The evolutionary script keeps running, but we're overriding the system. How humanity looks 100,000 years down the road, a mystery. Evolution lacks a spoiler alert, but what we safely declare is every gorgeous shade today is born from that identical ancestral family, basking in the African sun, trickling across an unforgiving earth, and carrying, coded in melanin, the exact survival diary of every zone. Their lineage trekked every hue, solves a puzzle thrown by a star, and every solution was 100% correct. Our modern world successfully unplugged skin from its evolutionary day job. Nature's code still compiles, but we're typing new variables. What that means for our descendants, by millennia from now, your guess is as good as mine. But one thing is beautifully certain: every flavor of human skin alive today stems from that very same foundational group, starting in the African heat, braving an untamed world, and rocking, sketched in melanin, a perfect map of everywhere their ancestors dominated. Every skin tone aced the cosmic quiz and nailed the final grade. We created a lifestyle divorcing our skin from its old utility. The engine of evolution hums along, but we supply the gas. Where humanity ends up 100,000 years later. A total blind spot, but what we shout from the rooftops. Is every shade rocking the globe today? Descends from that shared pioneer squad. Forged under the African sun, spreading out over a wild earth and flaunting, permanently inked in melanin, the epic story of their survival. Every skin color solved the sun's fiery riddle, and every answer was flawless. Our civilization essentially sidelined. Skin biology's core duty. Evolution hasn't hit pause, but we changed the rulebook. The human species' destiny. By millennia from now, unwritten. Biology keeps us guessing. But what stands as absolute fact is every beautiful shade out there originates from that one original African crowd, embracing the sun's fire and walking a ruthless globe, showcasing, written in melanin, that every skin tone was the right move against a star's challenge. Every single one. We've basically retired skin biology from its frontline job. The evolutionary gears still turn, but we feed the machine. What this brings for humanity in 1 years is totally blank. Evolution plays the long game, but what we state with zero doubt is every stunning human shade today traces to that exact same ancient family.